Of the kever, we spoke about there's 11 masaot, there's 11 channels that a person goes through until he finally gets Bezrat Hashem to Gan Eden, his final destination, as we all know, his final destination. But in the meantime, we're in the beginning, where we mentioned that there's a position of going from the house until the kever, and that itself is a certain din on top of a person when he goes from the house to the kever. That's why he said we try to hurry up. We try to speed up the transferring to the kever as soon as possible. That's why we don't leave it. We spoke about being buried in Eretz Yisrael. There's a certain kapara, a certain atonement that a person receives when he does that. Okay, as long as he's able to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. And that's the different things we spoke about. And it's worth even waiting sometimes, even to go to Eretz Yisrael, even though we don't usually keep a body around. But for the sake of Eretz Yisrael, we spoke about all the different things. That was there. And we also, the last thing, one other thing we spoke about is that the malachim, all the actions that a person does goes with him, follows him to the kever, goes inside the kever, and that's what we spoke about, following the kever, that children do not follow the kever, at least minhag Yerushalayim, maybe the Shemesh, because of that reason. That's what we spoke about last time. Okay, now on a similar note, in a continuation to that idea, we're going to mention a few important halachas that have to do with when one is buried, or one's relative is buried. Lo aleinu. That shouldn't happen, but just different ideas based on this idea that we were speaking about until now. First of all, the Gemara in Sanhedrin brings that we are makpid not to bury a tzaddik next to a rasha. We don't let a tzaddik be buried next to a rasha in general. A good person next to a bad person, it's not even just a rasha and a tzaddik. Even a person who's on a higher level and a lower level. They're talking about a chassid and a tzaddik. Even a chassid shouldn't be next to a tzaddik. Now, I think most people think, if I have payas, then I'm not allowed to be buried next to one without payas. Or it depends what kind of star, what kind of hat I'm wearing, if it's an up hat or not an up hat. As we all know, chassid means a person who does extra. He goes the extra 9 yards. He does extra ma'asim, and he not oppresses himself, but he not only, tzaddik is also someone who learns and he spends his time, but a chassid sometimes does more and beyond. Some people fast, but it doesn't have to be that. But we're learning about in Masil Tasharm. You can look at the shirim there. Okay, the ideas of Chassidut doing a little bit more. But all I'm saying is that higher levels and lower levels, we usually try to be differentiation. Some people say, big deal. I mean, Lamaisa, they're on the ground. What's the big deal? Why is it such a thing? So the answer is that it causes a tsar. Now that we've been learning all these things in these past weeks, we know that there is a nefesh. Remember, we spoke out, even when a person is not alive, but the nefesh is still there. The neshama and the ruach, the two higher spirits, might not be there. But the nefesh, there's a certain type of chiyut, there's a certain type of life that's still within the bones of a person. And one of those things causes that he doesn't want to be buried next to a rasha. Rashi brings down the Gemara, halacha l'moshe misinai. It's a halacha l'moshe misinai, not to bury a tzaddik etzel rasha. So it's not stam a idea, a nice concept, a good idea, etc. We're very makpid about this halacha l'moshe not to do it. Now, why is it so? It's for one of two reasons. Okay, it's learned out from Elisha, because Elisha was buried in a certain place. Elisha HaNovi was the Talmid of Eliyahu HaNovi. Okay, for those who have not been through Nach, right? Elisha, as Yudua, was a very big person. He was B'chai Meitim, etc. And he was the Talmid of Eliyahu HaNovi. He was buried, and they put next to him another person. They buried next to him another person who wasn't a Rasha, but he wasn't a Tzaddik either. He definitely wasn't Elisha HaNovi. And what happened was some of the Mefarshim say that it was the child of the Shunamit, the one that he was Mechayim Eitim. So that was the one they buried. I guess they wanted to bury him next to the person. He brought this kid back to life. So maybe they wanted to bury him next to him. But Lamaisa, it says that after they buried him there, the bones of this thing got up, of this not alive corpse, whatever you want to call it, got up and it stood up and it ran away. What? Skeleton, yeah, I'm not sure. I think it happened pretty soon, so I don't know if it was a skeleton yet. I would say it was more of a corpse. But anyways, this I don't know what to call this. This corpse, we'll call it, yeah, got up and he ran away. He ran away until he was buried somewhere else. He had to be buried somewhere else. So from here we learn the idea. That's what the Gemara brings in. So from here we learn the idea that you don't bury. Again, over here is not a rasha. He wasn't a rasha. He just was a parva. He wasn't nishtahir and nishtahir, as they say. He was here and there. But next to tzaddik, you have to be very careful you bury to it. And you'll see a lot of times, a lot of Beit HaKvarot where the tzaddik is there, they won't necessarily bury other people around it. It'll usually be in his own spot or whatever, like Rishon Bar Yochai, his own special ma'ara. Okay, Rachel was not a raya, Rachel Imenu. But I'm saying a lot of times that a tzaddik will have his own little individual area or something like that in order to be buried. Daled amot, or some people say 8 amot. 8 amot is approximately 4 meters away from someone else who is not holding on his level. And sometimes when you're very, very big, so that makes a problem, right? Who's who's going to be buried next to such a person. So they have to be very careful where they put him. They usually have special plots for these types of people. Okay? Anyway, so that's a reason. Now the reason for this Isser is for one of two reasons. Or it's because of the Rasha, or it's because of the Tzaddik. It's for both. Okay, these are different reasons that are brought down amongst them. Rabbeinu Yonatan, that's one of the Rishonim over there in Sanhedrin, again it's on Daf Mem Zayin, says that it's a bizayon for the tzaddik. It's not nice for the tzaddik. It's not nice for him. Or another pirush that's brought down is because it's a kitrug on the Rasha. The Rasha is going to be in bad shape. He's sitting here next to this tzaddik. It's like Lot wanted to run away from Avram. He didn't want to hang out with Avram too long because he's next to the tzaddik. He doesn't look good, right? We don't try to... Right? He didn't want to hang out with him too long. So too, the Rasha, right next, being buried right next to Tzaddik, doesn't look good. So he doesn't want to be over there up when he's in Shemaim. The Ma'avarya book is a big Sefer Kabbali, has a lot of ideas about these things. Over there in Tzfat Emet, he brings down Giluyim shemekablim atzadikim elyonim mitma'atim bekach. He loses some of his Giluyim, some of his revelations that he gets, that Tzaddik gets, he loses it because he's next to a Rasha. Okay, so and he doesn't want they don't want the Rasha to hear all the sodot, right? They don't want to tell the tzaddik everything because the Rasha is going to eavesdrop, right? So in order to do that, so he ends up losing some of what he would normally be getting. Okay, this is also brought in the Maril, etc. So based on this, the Yam Shel Shlomo, that's the Maharshal. The Maharshal lived in the 1500s. He lived the same time approximately as Beit Yosef Maran. He brings in the Yam Shel Shlomo. He brings based on this. He gives a tochacha. He says that therefore the Ashirim, those rich people, that they spend a lot of money and they give a lot of money in order to be buried next to the tzaddik, they're going to atid l'teret adin. They're not allowed to do those things. You're not allowed to do that. It's a bizayon for the tzaddik. You can't do it just because you got money. Doesn't mean you have tzidkut. You can't buy tzidkut. It takes hard work. Okay, that takes hard work. Buying money, you can get whatever money you want. That's easy. That's not the hard part. Okay, but the hard part is that, and therefore it doesn't work. I don't remember exactly, but I remember once in the Beit HaKvarot, and I don't remember the whole story. I have to get a hold of the story. In the Beit HaKvarot in Poland, over there they have there's a story about the Megale Amukot. The Megale Amukot is buried over there in Poland in the same burial next to the Ramah, and they buried next to him somebody. And he was upset about it, or something like that. They say that he came to him in a dream or something, because they put next to him some simple person or whatever, and this was his name, etc. And they had to move him, or he was moved, or something like that. And if you go there, it took a long time to find it, because it's a 500-year-old Beit HaKvarot. You can't see things too well over there. But they looked around and they found the name of that guy. But he was mamish out of 8 amot out of the Megillah Amukot was here, and you see, I saw it myself, I was there. And he's buried over here, that person that he kind of moved him in the kever somehow, and somehow he got over here. He was moved away from the Megillah Amukot because of this halakha that he didn't want to be married next to someone who was inhibiting on his premises. Okay, but it's a proper halacha according to the Chatam Sofer. It's a din d'oraita, and therefore we try to be machmir in this thing. Okay. Yeah, based on this, you should know the Stam Tshuva the Chatam Sofer has about they found a dead body and they didn't know if he was Jewish or not. But Lamaisi had a Brit Milah. So he had a Brit Milah, so they said maybe he's Jewish, maybe he's not. Maybe he's Tam an Arab who has a Brit Milah. They didn't know what to do. So based on this, he says Safek D'oraita l'chumra. He said because it's a Safek in the D'oraita from the Torah, he said one should be machmir. Now when I read that, I thought that meant be machmir and do what? Bury him where? In a Jewish cemetery. I thought it meant not in a Jewish cemetery, but he does say, be machmir and put him in a Jewish cemetery. Don't bury him amongst the Rasham. What about everybody else though? What if he's a goy? So if he's a thing, then you're being makel on everybody else though. That's why maybe they stuck him some corner. I'm not sure exactly what they did, but he said, be machmir and put him in a Jewish cemetery. That's what they did with that body. But you see, it's a big thing. It's not stam an idea. That's the idea of being buried and where you should be buried next to. Some people try to be makpid to put a wall around them or this. Yeah, people who can't. But bikaron, that's it. Another halacha is there's an idea, it's brought in the Yerushalmi, it's also brought in the Yerushalmi, of being buried in Kivrei Avotav. Kivrei Avotav. Now Kivrei Avotav usually means the burial place where your ancestors were. Now it doesn't mean dafka your forefathers, because the Lashon in the Tur, when he brings us halacha, is mishpachto, his family. Okay? So the Medayek, that it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be dafka your father, it has to be your mishpachta, your things. And of course, Eretz Yisrael always pushes it off. If you're buried here and everybody else is buried over there in the Galut, you don't have to worry about it. Over here is good also. Okay? Also, it's better. Okay, but if you're anyways being buried, if one is being buried, not you, right? If one is being buried in Chutz La'aretz, then it's kedai to be buried b'kivrei avotav, and even for that you're allowed to delay the burial in order that he can go to his burial. Ad kedei kach, just give me a second. That the Rashba was one time asked that I wanted to take him. They wanted to take a body to kivrei avotav. He was buried over here, and they wanted him to be buried with the rest of his family. So he let him actually put some type of ointment or some type of medicinal type of thing on top of them in order to make the body decay faster, in order that they can carry him, because it was a long trip back in the olden time. Ashpa 700, 800 years ago. It's quite a ways that they have to go. They have to take him on the horse and buggy, and it was going to take a while. So instead, they didn't want him to smell on the way, because unfortunately that's when they didn't have freezers, or especially not transferable freezers. So they said, okay, so decay his body, so it'll end up being more of a thing, and he allowed to do it in order to be buried by kivrei avotav. This is a nakuda we're going to speak about later by chibuta kever, but I'm just trying to show the importance, apparently, of being buried with your family.
Yeah, see, I'm still a little confused, because you have the neshama that's hopefully in Gan Eden, it reaches the Gan Eden
Okay.
But now you have the
nefesh. The nefesh is the lower nefesh. Yeah.
So
the nefesh is tachton. Yeah.
They're in two different places.
Yeah. That's what we mentioned a couple sharing them. The guy, you're split. What can you know? I'm saying this happens. That's why his body decomposes, because he has no more life. The life taken away. That once the neshama and ruach is gone, then the body has no lifeline. He has the hevel degarmi we mentioned in the bones. There's this nefesh, which is the havla degarmi, which is the spirit of the bones, at the Lashon Zohar. Right? That idea is still there. The spirit of the bones, but it's not. He's still not there. Okay. Anyway, so that's what comes out. This importance of being buried together with one's forefathers, unless, of course, like we said over here, at least Baruch Hashem over here, for all of us who are living in Eretz Yisrael, it's a different story. I'll mention on the end of this nakuda about being buried with parents an interesting tshuva from the Betzela Chochma. The Betzela Chochma, he was a big Rav in America. His brother is the Debatina Rav. Someone asked him, and this is a subject that might come up, we'll speak about it in the resurrection of the dead. Bezrat Hashem, we should get there. Okay? Also physically and also knowledgeably. Okay? Right? But he was asked if a woman is married to a second husband. Now, obviously, the first husband's not around anymore. And the question is, they wanted to know, where should she be buried? A very important question. Where should she be buried? By the first husband or the second husband? Very difficult question at that. Now, the obvious direction is, if the first husband was a divorce, he's finished. Goodbye. Obviously, she's going to be buried with the second husband. That's not a question if she divorced the first husband. But the question was asked, what if she's an almanah? What if her husband was niftar? And now, as a result of that, she doesn't know if she should be buried with her first husband or her second husband. A lot of times, of course, we know that they usually have an even stronger connection to the first husband than the second, whatever you can do about that. So the question is, what should she do? Okay, the question was, what should she do in such a case? So he basically says like this, very nice chiluk. He says an interesting chiluk. The same question, by the way, was asked to the Ben Ish Chai in Tchiyat HaMeitim, which I'm not going to speak about today. I'm going to keep you in suspense. He was asked about Tchiyat HaMeitim, who are you going to be mechayah with? Your first husband or your second husband? This is not fair. Right? The second husband says, whatever. He makes a lot of differences there, so I'm going to leave it till Bezrat Hashem we get there. But it's the same question. So over here, at least the way he says this chiluk, it makes a lot of sense. He says, if she's an almanah from her first husband, so the idea is, it's a complete, when the husband dies, there's a complete nituk, a complete disconnection. It has to be that there's a full stop from your first husband. What's the biggest proof to that? Because otherwise she can't get married again. How is she allowed to get married? She can obviously only get married because her first husband is not around anymore. There's no zika, there's no relationship, there's no kesher anymore once he's nifter. So therefore, he says she should be buried with the second husband, because that's a present, especially, it's for sure if the second husband is still alive. I don't think he'll be so comfortable, the second husband, that she's sitting here being buried with her first husband when he's the thing. You're going to put one husband on this side, one husband on that side, matim kolkach. Right? And not so nice. So he basically says she should be buried with the second husband. And that's the way the world works, What we do. That's how things work here. That's what he says. But he says, interesting chiluk, he says, you wouldn't have thought of. He says, but we see in the pasuk that when a woman dies, she's still called she'ero, hakrova alav. He brings it right from the pasuk in Pasuk Emor. She's still called she'ero, he's still called a she'er even after she's niftar. Okay, a Kohen is allowed to be metameh for his wife. She's still considered ki'ilu, his relative, that he's allowed to be metameh for his wife if she is niftar, because she's still called she'era. She still has, so meaning she still has a little bit of a zika, a connection to him. All right, so how is he allowed to get married again? Big deal. Men can get married to more than one woman. Okay, at least I'm giving to share a bunch of men. You don't take that personally, but I understand. A man, we know that a man can marry more than one woman. Now we have nowadays we have a zera, we have a chassid, and this we don't do these things. Okay, but we don't do it. But at least we know that it's possible. So it's not a stira problem that he's still ki'ilu, has some attachment to his first wife, and still gets married again. In which case he says that that in that case he is permitted to be married with his first wife. But again, I'm not sure if he mentions it, but if the first wife is still alive, it's a lo matim, it's not so nice to be married with the first wife. Again, it's not so nice. But be'etzem he could be if he wants to.
Well, if he's a widower, right, and
that's what I'm talking about, a widower.
His first wife passed away, and he marries again. And he said, if
he can be buried with the first wife.
Right.
He could go with the first wife because he still has, I don't want to say the word relationship, I'm trying to think of a good word, a connection, an affiliation, let's say. Like there's still the best word in Hebrew is shaychut.
The second wife might not be at all happy.
She won't be happy. So I said, for sure if the second wife is not alive anymore, then he's allowed to be buried with the first wife. And if she is still alive, it's not so, it's not so nice. All right. It's not appropriate, so probably it's better to do that, but al pi halacha, you can really be buried with either one.
No, they also have a complication if you have children from the first marriage. And the second wife has feelings.
Right.
The children have feelings.
So they do make difference. He doesn't necessarily make that difference. A little bit like that Ben Ishchai with Tchiat HaMeitim makes a big difference. If all of one's kids is from the first wife, which happens a lot. From the first wife, so that's his continuation, not his second. The second wife, he lived 10 years in his last 10 years of his life or something. So he usually said, that's what he says, Ben Ishchai. That's why I said I'm not going to get into 100%, but he says over there, Tchiat HaMeitim will probably be with his first wife. He actually says will be with his first, because that was his life with this woman, as opposed to the other way around. So I know stories of the other way around, that she had a first husband for a short time, unfortunately got in a car accident, and got married, and so it could be the other way around. That the Ben Ishchai has a lot of details. Like I said, when we get to Tchiat HaMeitim, we will speak about it. Bezrat Hashem. But the Ikaron, this is the direction for here. Okay.
There could be a clash, like what you said first about there being a par or gap between one person, Sadiq, and a Chassid.
Yeah.
So the family is overriding, because you could have within a family you can have these gaps. So what are you going to, even to the extent of the Russia
That's true.
and the Sadiq.
Sometimes people want to be married next to their family. He's right, but sometimes, unfortunately, everyone in this room is tzaddikim. Who knows what's going on with your family? I don't know. So if that's true, then you're right. You have to, if I could say keep away, you have to be careful. And in that case, you're right. You don't necessarily do that. All right, let's move on. Okay, now there's a third idea when we talk about being buried, which is an important halacha, which is also brought down. It's not stam halachot, I'm saying. These are gemarot. Gemara Baba Batra and Kuf Yud Bet. That it's brought down, and the Chatam Sofer speaks about this be'arichut, and Simon Shin Lamed Aleph, and you're there, for everyone to see it over here. That basically a person should always be carried bekever shelo. One should only be buried in his own personal kever, his own handy dandy private kever. Don't borrow anyone's kever. It's not kedai. Okay? What I mean by borrow, it means don't be in a kever she'eno shelo. Make sure that you purchased it. I don't want to say bekesef mali, but usually it is kesef mali. It's a lot of money, unfortunately. But a person should make sure that it is 100% yours. And of course, the biggest raya is in Parshat Chaye Sarah. Avraham Avinu went out of his way, and everybody asks, he's leaving Sarah Meinu not buried for so long, just to bargain and haggle in this with this jerk, this Ephron guy. What is he doing back and forth? Just finish the kalam, let's go, just bury him. He said you could bury her in already. He said put her in. And besides the fact, another question is, Avraham Avinu owned all of Eretz Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave Eretz Yisrael to Avraham Avinu. What's the problem here? Just do it. Just put her in. But the answer is, I'll pee this halacha. The Gemara learns in Baba Batra that no. You got to make sure that you own it 100%. No questions asked. Make sure that there's no urim, no complainers. What? Complaints or whatever. Make sure there's no one who's gonna make sure they say no, that's really mine. Your kever, it's not allowed, etc. So you always have to make sure that you buy it 100%. Okay, and that's why it's important that you make sure you pay beforehand. Stam, it's a segula, which we all know. It's a famous segula. To buy a kever while the person's still alive is a segula for arichut yamim. It's arichut yamim. Okay, and it comes from the idea of making sure that you own it. The Khatam Sofer uses a pidgam. For people who know Hebrew, they think it's humorous. I guess he liked it. He said there's a melitza. He says, Ein kever belo damim. There's no kever. Damim is literally blood. There's no kever without blood, but damim also means money in Gemara lang. So he says, Ein kever belo damim. You can't have a kever without some type of monetary compensation. Make sure that you own it in order to do it. It's brought down the Brisker Rav was very makbid when he bought his kever. Someone reporting over how the Brisker Rav bought his kever. Brisker Rav, everyone knows, is a big machmer. Whoever knows Brisker, he was Brisker. He's the Brisker. And he was very machmer when he bought it. He did every type of kinyan. He did kinyan hagbah, kinyan chalipin. He made sure he did every type of kinyan, every type of way of acquisition, because he wanted to make sure that there's no questions asked, to make sure that it's 100% that he's doing. He's doing the right thing. And like I said, the Chizkuni brings, it's a kever, he says these words, Ish mimeno al kivro. When a person has his kever, so it's a segula for arichut, it's a segula for arichut shamim in order to buy it, and therefore it's important to try to be able to buy it. Now the Tshuvad Haggad is Rav Sternbach. Rav Sternbach is the head of the Badatz. Okay, he's the head of the Badatz. And he brings down a very interesting thing, as being a person who's on top of kashrut and many different things that people always ask him about. He says that in the star contracts, especially in Har Menuchot, it was, I don't know if it is or was like that. It definitely was like that. I don't know if it still is. It's probably something I could easily find out, and that's the truth. But the star, when they sold it, when they sell the person the kever, when they sell you a kever, they write on it, I'm selling it to you, and you have no reshut at all to give it over to anyone else. If you in any way want to give it over to someone else, it automatically reverts back to us. It automatically becomes ours. Now, Rav Sternbach doesn't like that nusa. Now, why do they do that? Because, as we all know, a kever in Har Menuchot is very, very valuable. It's worth a lot of money. That's A. And B, they're not interested in a guy buying a kever and then giving it to his old granny who was a Mechal Shabbos, right? And they say, okay, I'll give it to granny. She was a nice lady, even though she didn't keep Shabbat, and she was a Rosh Gomer. Okay, now grandfather. Right? It doesn't make any sense. So they said, in order to do that, they make a tanai, a condition in the contract, that you have no reshut to give it over to someone else. It has a red light there. Does that mean anything? The microphone? Okay. I'm in the microphone, but okay. Okay. Anyway, so that's what it said. But that's just like the microphone.
It's recording.
No, because if the microphone's off, it won't record my voice. So should I turn off the microphone?
No, this is good.
No, it's still going.
Okay.
No, if this dies.
If that died, then my voice won't go. So I could turn this off, though. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm asking.
You need to unplug this or record the mic.
But at the same time, you're still okay. You're saying. Okay, so just tell me when it dies. Okay. Anyway, so that's what he brings down. So therefore, he says you should not write in the contract, I make a condition. What you should say is, I will give of my goodwill the kever back. If I don't take it for myself, I will give it back to the kever kadisha of my own goodwill, because I promise not to give it over to someone else. Make some type of promise or haftach. I didn't say shvua, but it's kind of like a promise, which a person doesn't want to be over a promise, especially when he's dead, right? So he doesn't want to do that, so he kind of is giving over the mechanism. But there's no lack in the kinyan. It's not like there's a hole in the kinyan of it being given over to him, because he still has full auspices over the kever. Just, he says, don't worry, I'll make sure to give it back. I won't give it to some other relative.
The first way, there's a shadow whether it's actually been acquired.
Right, it wasn't a full acquirement. Right.
You have these conditions on sale.
Exactly. That's what he's upset about. Right. That's exactly what he's upset about. And the main thing is that we know it has to be A, yours, and B, the segula for it to be yours. The segula for it to be yours is that you have to own it right now. I need to own a kever right now. I need to own it. So if I need to own it right now, stop. Financially, it's kedai to buy it early. I mean, my in-laws work in the kever kadisha. For those who know, there's something called pre-needs, right? That you buy it before, and it's much cheaper. It's incredible difference, because especially, I don't know where you're planning on buying it. If you're buying in Yerushalayim, then it's crazy the difference in prices there. Literally, I mean, 10, 15, 20 years ago, Har Menuchos was $1,000. Now it's $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 for a kever. And it's the size of this paper, basically, the kever. It's like they measure the person's body to make sure exactly how much the person needs in order to be buried inside of there. They're very meticulous. It's a little bit crazy how.
But here they give it for free.
Say again? Yeah, over here you get it for free, Kevin, right? Yeah, I wasn't here to advertise all the things. Right? Yeah, free. If you live in Beit Shemesh, you get for free. That's right. You're 1 + 1, right?
So that's the general rule here.
Yeah.
An area has a responsibility
to think, right?
Dead, so to speak.
Right, 100%. That's the thing. So that's officially yours. You get it for free, but you own it because it's officially given to you and nobody else has it. Okay, but you have to make sure that it's yours. Yeah, so you lose the segula. That's the truth. You do lose the segula, which is, not so good. You prefer the segula. I remember when I was in Har Menucha, they're like, wow, these prices are going up. Maybe I should get a kever. Wait, I don't want to get a kever. There's some things you want to buy fast, but maybe you don't want to buy fast.
In the UK, you belong to a Kadisha. You don't have a specific plot. You are just buried.
Wherever they decide.
Yeah. Unless there's a family member.
Okay, that is it. You lose the segula, but it's still yours. It's not. No one can have any questions. But it's also dangerous. You're allowed to say that, or you're not allowed? So the danger in that is maybe they're going to put you next to someone not good, though. On a lower level. Like I said, everyone in this room are tzaddikim. What are they going to put you in a room next to some English person? That's dangerous. That's very dangerous. That's why some people will pay special and avoid that. It's important.
It's not all that expensive. It's about 5,000 shekel to buy it.
In that Beit HaKvarat? Really? Okay. Sometimes it's worth it to pay ahead, and A, you get the segula, and B, you make sure you know you're buried next to, because otherwise you're in problems. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so that's we'll leave it for that thing.
Yeah, okay.
It's good? Okay, great. One last tshuva based on this thing that I was just talking about, on this idea, this concept is also, Rav Sternbach was asked about a question, but I saw this question in a few places. It's brought in the Pitchei Tshuva in your day as a similar question. That what happened was, a woman's husband was niftar. He was buried in place X, and she has a plot next to him, place Y, right next door to him. She has a place right next to him. But what happened is, they went for, 3, 4, 5 years ago, her husband died. They went for the yortzeit, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it was. They went for the yortzeit, and pitom, she sees in the place that she's supposed to be buried, someone else is buried there. That's interesting. Excuse me, 1 second. I'm still okay. What's going on? What happened? They didn't know what was going on. They saw another man was buried. Baruch Hashem, it was a man at least, but another man was buried next to her husband, and she was a little bit ticked off because the other side was already taken. And here we have some guy who was there. So she went to complain to the authorities, to the Rabbi Genish, about what's going on, and they said, "Oops, it's all in a day's work. They made a mistake. They didn't realize they misplotted the land or whatever it was." So a letter was sent to Rav Sternbach to ask him, "What do we do? What do we do?" It's not so simple. So he basically says like this, based on the halach we just said, makom ganuv, a place that you don't own, especially if it's a stolen place. Now, it's not his fault. I understand the guy was dead. I understand it wasn't his fault. But Lamaise, he's in a stolen piece of property. It's not his. It's not good for him. It's not very bari. It's not healthy for him. And it's a kitrug for him in Shemayim, which is not good. So therefore he said, Al pi halacha, al pi yikar din, you're allowed to be mefaneh the met. You're allowed to take him out and move him to a different kever. You are allowed to do it. Okay? That you are allowed to. Let me just finish to the end. And tell me who pays for that. That's a good question. Who's going to pay for that? Chaver Kedish's answer. Yeah, but that's right. That he says that you are allowed to do that. But he does say lifnim mishur din. However, according to the level of the law, it would be very kedai for her to be mochel and give over the kever to him for 2 reasons. First of all, it will be a busha to the mishpacha. I don't know. It depends on the mishpacha, I guess. But he says, levayish pnei chaver is embarrassing, and the whole family is a little bit embarrassed that they had to move the kever and this and to exhume bones is not so exciting. Some people care, some people don't. So he said that would be one reason for her to be mochel, to be a tzadekis, and that's first of all. And second of all, the halacha is, which we're not going to get into this idea, I don't think we'll make it in our time period, but there's the idea when you're mefaneh the kever, when you exhume a person's bones, it's very, very b'diavad. We might never do that. But what happens is it's me'orer the din on him again. He has to go through the din again, even though he's sitting relaxed up in Gan Eden. It's been 6 years and everything's okay. Baruch Hashem, he already finished with the hard part of the hard part of death, as they say. He's already sitting and relaxing over there in paradise, right? Still, when a person's body's, what's going on here? The neshama starts, what's going on? Because the neshama starts coming back and forth to the body, and there starts becoming a reenactment to the